Chosen one. There are moments in life that quietly expose the true nature of people. Moments that strip away masks and reveal who is guided by integrity and who is driven by fear, jealousy, and unresolved darkness. You were placed in one of those moments, not by accident, not by chance, but by design. It was not loud, not theatrical, not staged for public approval, yet it was deeply revealing. In that moment, they expected you to react. They expected your emotions to spill, your voice to rise, and your energy to fracture. They anticipated defense, explanation, justification, or collapse. They wanted proof that you could be pulled down to their level, but you didn't give them that satisfaction. You remained still. You remained composed. You chose restraint over impulse, wisdom over reaction, and silence over chaos. And that choice shocked them more than any outburst ever could. That silence, that calm, that measured self-control unsettled them. Some of them are still replaying it in their minds, revisiting the moment where their strategy failed. They are still wondering how you stayed calm when provoked, how you walked away without bitterness, and how you refused to become what they tried to awaken in you. What disturbs them most is not what you said, but what you didn't say, not what you did, but what you refused to do. Chosen one, they are impressed not because you performed, but because you transcended. You demonstrated mastery over self, and that is something those still ruled by impulse cannot comprehend. Before we go any further, if this message resonates with your spirit, type "I am chosen" in the comments, and like and subscribe so this message reaches others, walking this same sacred path. Now take a breath, because what you are experiencing right now, the loneliness, the separation, the quiet, is not punishment, it is divine protection. When the noise fades and the crowd thins, it is because the universe is creating space around you, space for clarity, space for alignment, space for elevation. Not everyone is allowed to walk with you into your next season, and not everyone deserves access to your energy. The isolation you feel is not abandonment, it is refinement. You are being removed from environments that would dilute your purpose and people who would drain your spirit. In this protected space, your discernment sharpens, your intuition strengthens, and your soul recalibrates. You are learning to move without needing validation, to stand without applause, and to remain steady even when misunderstood. This phase is teaching you that peace is power and restraint is strength. Those who tried to provoke you revealed their own instability, while you revealed your sovereignty. And now, as the dust settles, you are being prepared for a higher assignment, one that requires clarity, emotional discipline, and unwavering self-respect. So do not rush the silence. Do not fear the distance. This is the moment where you're being shielded, strengthened, and silently elevated. Now let's dive deeper, because what comes next is where your true transformation begins. Point 1, the weight of their guilt and the psychology of avoidance. When someone chooses to fabricate a story about you, they are not merely arranging false words. They are constructing an invisible weight that settles into their nervous system and follows them wherever they go. A lie is never passive. It demands maintenance. It requires memory, emotional energy, and constant vigilance. This is why their behavior changes around you. This is why they hesitate, avoid eye contact, or disappear altogether. Psychologically, this tension is known as cognitive dissonance, the inner fracture that forms when a person's actions contradict the truth they are forced to witness. Spiritually, it is something even deeper. They have committed to a distorted version of you so they can justify their own envy, insecurity, or betrayal. They needed you to be wrong so they could feel right. But when they encounter you, they are confronted with something their lie cannot explain away. Your peace, your steadiness, your patience, and your quiet integrity. The fruit of your spirit exposes the fiction they created. Two realities now collide, the story they told others and the truth standing in front of them. And the human mind cannot hold both without pain. Your presence becomes unbearable, not because you accuse them, but because you don't. You stand there unbothered, unchanged, and uncorrupted, and that silence acts like a courtroom. Their conscience becomes the judge. Every glance at you is evidence. Every calm response is a verdict. They told the wrong person that you were arrogant, yet they met humility. They painted you as cruel, yet they encounter kindness. Each contradiction scorches their ego. The lie begins to collapse under its own weight. So they withdraw, not because you failed, not because you were rejected, but because proximity to truth threatens to expose the fragile structure they built to protect their self-image. Their distance is not avoidance of you, it is avoidance of themselves. They have built a house of cards, and your authenticity is a quiet wind that could bring it all down without effort. This is why you must not chase explanations or demand closure. Their absence is already a confession. Their silence is already an apology. They do not have the courage to speak. The space between you is filled with their unresolved conflict, their unspoken regret, and their awareness that they crossed a line they cannot uncross. Every time your name enters their thoughts, it summons the version of themselves they had to become to diminish you. That awareness is heavy. Few are brave enough to sit with it. Most will retreat instead of repent. Let them. Let them go without resentment. Their departure is the most honest act they have offered you. You remain whole. You remain light. And the fact that they cannot stand near that light is not your burden to carry. Point 2, the fear of exposure and the frequency of truth. Every human being carries a signature frequency, an energetic imprint that speaks before words ever do, and the frequency of a chosen one is tuned to the vibration of truth itself. Truth is not loud, it does not chase validation, and it does not perform. It simply exists. When someone tells a lie to the wrong person about you, they are operating on a low, dense frequency rooted in fear, insecurity, and distortion. On a subconscious level, they already know something critical. If you and that wrong person were ever to sit in the same room and speak with open hearts, the lie would collapse instantly. Not through confrontation, not through argument, but through presence. Truth does not need defense. It is self-revealing. This is why liars fear proximity more than exposure. They are not afraid of what you will say. They are afraid of what you will be without trying. Your calm, your consistency, your grounded energy would create a contrast so sharp that the false narrative could not survive it. This awareness traps the liar in a constant state of anxiety. They must keep distance. They must control access. They must manage perception. You will notice this pattern clearly if you observe closely. Excuses appear whenever a meeting could happen. Delays arise without logic, and subtle character suggestions are planted to frame you as hard to talk to, intense, or misunderstood. None of this is accidental. It is a perimeter, a barrier constructed not to protect you, but to protect the lie. The isolation you experience is not rejection. It is containment. You are witnessing a spiritual quarantine, and the ones who distorted your image are keeping themselves away because closeness would infect their narrative with reality. And this is why silence surrounds you. This is why conversations happen about you, but never with you. This is why doors seem to close without explanation. It is not because you lack value. It is because your presence destabilizes false structures. When truth enters a room, everything built on illusion begins to shake. Those who benefit from the illusion feel this immediately, even if they cannot explain it logically. Their nervous system reacts, their tone shifts, their behavior becomes avoidant. They guard the lie like a fragile artifact, knowing that one moment of authentic contact would reveal the discrepancy between rumor and reality. This is also why they stay in the shadows. Shadows are comfortable for those who manipulate perception, because shadows blur edges and hide details. You, however, bring clarity. Your energy sharpens outlines. It makes things visible. That is threatening to anyone who survives through ambiguity. Understand this deeply. Avoidance is not evidence of your insignificance. It is evidence of your potency. If you were weak, they would not fear exposure. If you were inconsistent, the lie would blend more easily. But you are aligned. You are coherent. Your words, actions, and spirit match. That integrity is dangerous to falsehood. Consider the sun. It does not argue with the night. It does not explain why it shines. It simply rises and darkness retreats. Those who cannot handle the heat do not negotiate with the sun. They seek shade. You are the sun in this scenario. Your light does not attack, but it reveals. And those committed to deception must hide from the clarity you provide. What you're experiencing is not abandonment, it is recognition. Your truth is so strong that it requires an entire conspiracy of silence to attempt to dim it, and even then, the light remains. Point 3, the protection of your anointing and the hedge of thorns. We often think of protection as something external, a shield that blocks harm from entering our lives, but divine protection is far more subtle and far more intelligent than that, because many times it is not about what is kept out, but about where you are prevented from going and who is quietly prevented from having access to you. When these individuals spoke falsely about you to the wrong person, they believed they were damaging your reputation, yet what they truly did was activate a spiritual boundary around your life, a hedge of thorns that you did not have to build yourself. This hedge does not exist to punish them. It exists to preserve you. It naturally repels the insincere, the manipulative, and the double-minded, keeping them at a safe distance from your inner sanctum, where your peace, clarity, and purpose reside. Your anointing, that specific grace and assignment placed upon your life, requires a particular atmosphere in order to grow. It cannot develop properly in environments saturated with gossip, suspicion, or hidden agendas. So when the lie was allowed to circulate, it was not because you were abandoned, but because the divine was clearing the room. This is how higher protection works. It removes you from rooms you are no longer meant to shrink yourself inside. Like a skilled gardener pruning a tree, it may look harsh from the outside, but pruning is not destruction, it is preservation. Dead branches add weight, steal nutrients, and make the tree vulnerable to disease. Those who believed the lie, aligned with it, or quietly withdrew without discernment were those dead branches. They were connections that carried the potential to drain your energy, distort your focus, and distract you from your higher calling. Their distance is not a loss, it is a release. They believe their absence is a punishment meant to make you feel isolated. But in reality, it is a divine filtration process, preserving your peace, your momentum, and your spiritual clarity. You are being hidden, not rejected. You are being concealed in the secret place of the Most High, where unnecessary noise cannot reach you, and unclean intentions cannot linger. What feels like loneliness on the surface is actually insulation at the spiritual level. Every rumor spoken against you reinforces the boundaries around your heart, strengthening discernment and sharpening your awareness of who is truly aligned with your path. Only those with pure intentions, emotional maturity, and spiritual integrity can pass through this filter. This is why you may notice fewer people around you now, but more clarity within you. The chaos was removed, so the calling could breathe. The confusion was silenced, so the assignment could speak. Divine protection does not always announce itself with miracles and visible rescue. Sometimes it works quietly by rearranging relationships, blocking access, and allowing misunderstandings to expose who was never meant to walk with you into the next season. What was meant to harm you has instead become a wall that guards you. What was meant to isolate you has refined your circle. And what was meant to break you has positioned you in a place of stillness, strength, and spiritual authority, where your anointing can finally grow without interference. Point 4, the testing of the wrong person and the sifting of souls. The wrong person in this scenario is not wrong by accident, nor are they wrong because of a single poor decision. They are wrong because their inner alignment was never anchored in truth to begin with, and life simply applied pressure until that reality surfaced. What you experienced was not betrayal for the sake of pain, but revelation for the sake of protection. Life has a precise way of testing foundations, and when pressure arrives, only what is rooted remains. For you, this moment functions as a divine sifting, a separating of substance from appearance. Ask yourself why the wrong person believed the lie so quickly, why a single whisper was enough to override years of proximity, shared moments, or declared loyalty. Ask why they did not come to you directly, not as an adversary, but as a peer or a friend seeking clarity. That absence of inquiry reveals everything. It reveals a lack of discernment, a lack of courage, and most importantly, a lack of spiritual alignment. Anyone who can be moved by rumor more than by relationship was never truly grounded in your life. They were standing near you, but not standing with you. The lie itself becomes a tool, not of destruction, but of filtration. It filters out those who operate on hearsay, insecurity, and projection, and it leaves behind those who operate on integrity, character, and inner knowing. This realization is painful because it forces you to confront the difference between emotional closeness and spiritual compatibility. Yet it is necessary, because what feels like loss is actually precision. You're being shown, without confusion or ambiguity, who is genuinely for you and who was merely benefiting from proximity. The wrong person was allowed to hear the lie so their true nature could be revealed without debate or explanation. They exposed themselves by how quickly they chose a narrative over truth. It is far better to see this now, in this season, when the cost is emotional, than to discover it later, when the stakes involve purpose, destiny, or legacy. This moment saves you from building future foundations on unstable ground. Do not waste your energy on bitterness toward the one who believed the falsehood. Bitterness ties you to what has already been removed. Instead, acknowledge the clarity they provided. In believing the lie, they showed you where their loyalty truly lives. They saved you years of misplaced trust, emotional investment, and silent compromise. This sifting is not punishment, it is mercy. It removes counterfeit connections so authentic ones can finally take root without interference. It clears space for relationships that will not require constant explanation, defense, or self-abandonment. What remains after the sifting will feel quieter, but it will also feel safer. Fewer voices, but clearer ones. Less validation, but more truth. Understand this deeply. If someone leaves your life because of a lie, they were already aligned with leaving. The lie simply gave them permission. And if someone stays, asks, listens, and seeks understanding, they reveal a depth that pressure could not break. You are not losing people. You are losing illusions. And in that loss, you gain alignment, peace, and a future built on what is real, rather than what was merely familiar. Point 5, the silence of the spirit and the power of non-defense. There is a profound, quiet strength in not defending yourself. A strength that most people will never understand because it does not look powerful on the surface. When you hear that you have been misrepresented, misunderstood, or spoken about unfairly, the natural human instinct is to react immediately, to explain yourself, to gather proof, to correct the narrative, and to make sure your side is heard. The ego feels threatened, and the nervous system wants resolution right now. But as a chosen one, you are often invited into a higher discipline, one that goes against instinct and trains the soul. That discipline is silence. This is not the silence of fear, avoidance, or submission. This is the silence of supreme inner authority. It is the silence that comes from knowing who you are so deeply that no external distortion can shake your foundation. When you refuse to engage with a lie, you deprive it of the very fuel it needs to survive. Lies do not thrive on truth. They thrive on reaction. They need emotional engagement, arguments, explanations, and resistance to grow. When you stay calm and do not enter the arena, the lie has nothing to attach itself to. And without attachment, it begins to collapse under its own weight. This is spiritual law at work. Energy flows where attention goes, and when you remove your attention, you remove power. This is what can be called the silence of the spirit, a sacred stillness that communicates trust in something greater than human opinion. History shows that great teachers, prophets, and spiritually aligned individuals were often falsely accused, misunderstood, or slandered. Yet many of them chose restraint over reaction. They understood something most people miss. That character revealed over time is louder than any explanation given in a moment of emotional defense. When you do not defend yourself, you are not saying the lie is true. You are saying that the truth does not need your panic to survive. You are signaling to the spiritual realm that you trust the Creator, the universe, and divine order, whatever name you hold sacred, to be your vindicator. This trust activates a deeper alignment. It creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, so eventually truth moves in to fill the space. While others are whispering, speculating, and projecting their own insecurities onto your name, you are being refined in the unseen places. You are growing in silence, strengthening your inner core, and becoming more grounded, more disciplined, and more emotionally sovereign. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. It forces you to release control and surrender the outcome. But in that surrender, something powerful happens. Your nervous system calms. Your intuition sharpens. Your sense of self becomes less dependent on approval and more anchored in purpose. The people who meant harm often reveal themselves through inconsistency, while you reveal yourself through consistency. Time becomes your ally. Stillness becomes your shield. And without lifting a finger, the narrative begins to shift. Those who once doubted start to question the story they believed. Those who watched quietly begin to see patterns. This is not passive. It is strategic at a spiritual level. Your stillness is not emptiness, it is contained force. It disarms the enemy because there is nothing to fight against, no drama to feed on, no reaction to manipulation, just quiet, certainty. In this way, silence becomes a weapon of alignment, not destruction. It protects your energy, preserves your clarity, and allows truth to rise naturally without distortion. And when the truth finally stands on its own, it does so with far more authority than any defense you could have given. Point 6, the shift in frequency and the natural repel. As you deepen your spiritual practice and commit to a life of sobriety and meditation, something subtle yet undeniable begins to change within you, not in the way you speak alone, but in the way you resonate. Your internal signal recalibrates. Your nervous system settles. Your mind clears. Your spirit becomes coherent, and because of this inner alignment, you are no longer compatible with the low vibration environments you once tolerated. Gossip that feeds on insecurity, envy disguised as humor, and social games rooted in manipulation and unspoken competition. What you are experiencing is not rejection, it is resonance correcting itself. The reason certain people are staying away is not merely emotional or social, it is biological, energetic, and deeply spiritual. Their bodies cannot regulate in your presence anymore. Their nervous systems feel exposed around you. Just as certain animals instinctively retreat from frequencies they cannot tolerate, people who live in distortion are repelled by coherence. Authenticity exerts pressure. Truth creates friction for those built on performance. When you enter a room grounded, sober, self-aware, and inwardly still, you unconsciously disrupt the illusions others depend on to survive. They feel it in their chest, in their breath, and in the subtle unease they cannot explain. And because they lack the language to name spiritual discomfort, they reach for the nearest human explanation. They say you are weird, cold, stuck up, or that you have changed. That lie is not about you. It is about them translating energetic incompatibility into something their ego can tolerate. They could not say, "Your presence reminds me of what I avoid in myself," so they said, "You're different now." They could not say, "Your clarity makes my confusion uncomfortable," so they said, "You think you're better than us." Understand this deeply. The lie was a coping mechanism. It was their way of shrinking a spiritual shift into a manageable story. You did not lose friends. You outgrew a frequency. You stepped into a state of being where unconsciousness can no longer hide comfortably. You are entering a realm where only the transparent can survive, where masks slip without effort, and where games dissolve because there is no one left to play them. This separation is not punishment. It is physics. It is as natural as oil rising above water, not because oil is superior, but because its nature is different. Oil and water do not argue. They do not negotiate. They simply stop mixing. In the same way, your life is reorganizing itself around who you are becoming, not who you used to be. The silence you feel is not emptiness. It is altitude. The distance you notice is not abandonment, it is elevation. Embrace this buoyancy. Let yourself rise without guilt. You are being lifted into a level of consciousness where the whispers of the lower ground cannot reach your ears, where noise loses its authority, and where approval is no longer the currency of belonging. You are ascending not away from others, but toward alignment. And those who choose to remain in the valley of distraction, distortion, and denial cannot follow. Not because you close the door, but because the air grows thinner the higher you go. You are not isolating, you are integrating. You are not becoming less human, you are becoming more real. Point 7, the preparation for divine connections and the new covenant. The final reason for this period of isolation and the sudden distance of the liars is that your soul family is being prepared to meet you, and this preparation requires a sacred clearing that cannot be rushed or compromised. In the spiritual realm, nothing truly aligned enters a crowded, contaminated space. Space must be created before the new can arrive. And that space is not merely physical or social. It is energetic, emotional, and spiritual. If your life was still full of those who were willing to lie about you, distort your intentions, or project their unresolved shadows onto your name, and equally full of those who were comfortable believing those lies without ever seeking your truth, there would be no room for the high-level, destiny-aligned connections that are now quietly moving toward you. These connections do not thrive in noise, gossip, or confusion. They require clarity. The vacuum created by this season of staying away is not abandonment, punishment, or loss. It is a holy vacuum. It is a deliberate clearing, scrubbed clean of betrayal, envy, false witness, and spiritual interference. What feels like emptiness is actually precision. What feels like loneliness is actually protection. You are being separated, not because you are unworthy of companionship, but because your next companions require discernment, maturity, and depth that only solitude can refine. You are being prepared for people who will speak life into your vision instead of draining it, who will recognize your calling without trying to compete with it, and who will see your flaws without using them as weapons. These are people who will offer grace instead of judgment, curiosity instead of accusation, and loyalty instead of convenience. They will hear a rumor about you and dismiss it immediately, not because you are perfect, but because they know the rhythm of your heart, the consistency of your character, and the integrity of your spirit. This season of being misunderstood is not random. It is the dark room where your character is being developed. Just as film must sit in darkness to reveal a clear image, your life is being processed away from public validation so that your true essence can come into focus without distortion. In this dark room, you are learning who you are without applause, who you are without defenders, and who you are when your only witness is the divine. You are shedding the need to explain yourself to people who never intended to understand you. You are releasing the habit of over-giving to those who only take. You are strengthening your inner spine, your spiritual backbone, and your ability to stand calmly in your truth without chasing agreement. This is why old connections fell away quietly, without closure and without resolution. They could not follow you where you are going. Your soul family does not need convincing, rescuing, or managing. They recognize you instinctively. When they arrive, the connection will feel familiar, steady, and unforced, as though conversations resume rather than begin. Until then, this sacred distance is doing important work. It is detoxing your nervous system from chaos, retraining your intuition to trust itself again, and aligning your frequency with people who operate from honesty, depth, and purpose. Nothing about this season is wasted. Every silent day, every unanswered message, and every moment of solitude is clearing the path for relationships that are built on truth rather than trauma, resonance rather than reaction, and destiny rather than distraction. Soon you will step out into the light, and you will find yourself surrounded by a new tribe, a group of people who don't need to be told you are a chosen one, because they recognize the same fire in themselves. The liars stayed away so that the healers could move in. Trust the vacancy. Trust the empty chairs. They are being reserved for royalty. Do not mourn the seats that have gone empty at your table. Do not weep for the doors that have been closed by the hands of slander. You are a chosen one, and your reputation is held in the hands of the divine, not the mouths of men. The lie was told to the wrong person, but it was heard by the right judge. Trust the process of separation. The truth does not need to shout to be heard, it only needs to exist. Continue to walk your path with grace, for those who are meant to see your light will never be blinded by someone else's shadow. You are entering a season of profound clarity. The fog is lifting, and as it does, you will see that you were never truly alone. You were simply being shielded. Stay in peace. Stay in the light. You are protected.